Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are looking at a truly fascinating, kind of chaotic moment in Australian politics right now. We're witnessing this massive collision between everyday, micro-level voter frustrations and these huge macro-level economic pressures. And when those two things smash together, well, you get some serious political disruption. So today, we're going to unpack exactly what is happening on the ground, how political outsiders are capitalizing on that energy, and the profound, headache-inducing challenges this is going to pose for the upcoming federal budget. We've got some really incredible data and inside reports to get through, so let's just dive right in.
Right out of the gate, take a look at this quote. This actually comes from a leaked Liberal Party source speaking to Sky News about the upcoming Farah by-election. Quote, "One Nation is the red-hot favorite to win the seat." Now, in Australian politics, a minor party being tipped to just snatch a seat right out from under the major players, that is a massive shift in how people traditionally vote.
Okay, so let's get into our first section, shock polls and by-elections, focusing on the battle for Farah on May 9th.
To really understand why political insiders are practically sounding alarms over this specific race, just look at this number. High 30s. Sky News is reporting that One Nation's primary vote in Farah is hovering right around the high 30s. And why does that matter so much? Well, because in the Aussie electoral system, if your primary vote is tracking that high, you might not even need to rely on the whole complex web of preference deals to cross the finish line. They have enough sheer momentum that they could potentially just win it outright. No way around it, that's a real game changer.
Now, looking at the actual tactical pathways here, the major parties have been forced into this highly unusual, incredibly defensive posture. Notice what the Liberal Party is doing. Their immediate goal isn't actually to come in first on the primary vote. They are literally fighting just to secure second place. Why? Because if they can just squeak into second against the Teal independent candidate, the Teals have actually preferenced the Liberals. So those Teal votes would flow over to the Liberals, giving them a pathway to defeat One Nation. It's a stunning defensive maneuver. Meanwhile, One Nation's strategy is simple. Win outright by getting voters to completely bypass those traditional major party how-to-vote cards.
And you know what? Reports from the ground indicate that bypassing the traditional parties is exactly what voters are doing. People are reportedly just ignoring the how-to-vote tickets. It's a remarkably clear signal from the electorate. They are deeply frustrated about the cost of living, they're harboring concerns about immigration, and above all, there's just this palpable desire to completely shake things up. The status quo simply isn't working for them right now.
All right, moving on to Section 2, Wings for a Movement, High-Flying Political Donations.
So to see how all this grassroots frustration is actually attracting high-level resources, we can look at a pretty dramatic recent development. Pauline Hanson, the leader of One Nation, jumped on social media to boast about a major new donation, and her rhetoric here is super striking. She calls it providing the wings for a movement that refuses to let the heart of this country be silenced. She made it very clear this isn't for joyrides. She framed it as a literal vehicle for the, quote, battle for Australians.
So, what exactly are these wings? Well, we are talking about a physical airplane worth an estimated $1.5 million. And this was reportedly donated by people associated with mining magnate Gina Rinehart. I mean, when you drop a figure like $1.5 million into a single donation for a minor party, it really emphasizes the sheer scale of the financial backing this populist movement is suddenly wielding.
The donation itself is a high-end Cirrus G7 aircraft. But beyond the monetary value, this plane serves as a really powerful mini-narrative for what we're talking about today. It is a literal and figurative vehicle for a political outsider aiming to disrupt traditional politics. It's sending a message to voters, hey, we aren't just a fringe voice anymore. We're well-funded, we're mobile, and we are coming to challenge the establishment.
Let's bring it back down to earth with Section 3, the voter's daily reality. The disconnect on the door knock.
We're going to pivot from those high-flying donations right back down to the street level. Over in Victoria, there's another by-election happening in the seat of NPM. Shadow Cabinet Secretary Zoe McKenzie has been out there on the ground, knocking on doors and talking directly to voters. And her insights give us this vital, completely unvarnished look into the economic anxieties that are driving the electorate away from the major parties.
This is where it gets incredibly telling. Look at this stark comparison. On one hand, you have what federal politicians and commentators in the Capitol are obsessing over: capital gains tax, negative gearing, tweaking taxes on complex asset classes. But on the other hand, you have the actual daily lived experience of the voters McKenzie is talking to. They're worried about paying the rent. They're worried about putting fuel in the car. They're just trying to keep the lights on. It's like they're speaking two completely different languages.
In fact, McKenzie noted that out of all the doors she knocked on, 0 people brought up capital gains tax, not one. Instead, what she heard was the brutal story of the wallet's daily experience. People are doing it remarkably tough with just their weekly bills. They're anxious about rent. They are literally doing the math to see if they can afford the petrol just to do the morning school run. Look, when a voter can't afford to drive their kid to school, a debate about asset class taxation feels, as McKenzie put it, a million miles away. And that right there is why they want to shake things up.
Which perfectly sets up Section 4, the ultimate budget dilemma: navigating relief and inflation.
Because all of this grassroots pain and frustration bubbling up in Farjara and NPM, it translates directly into a massive, impending macro-level headache for the federal government. They are walking into a sequence of events that's going to define their term. Step 1, we've got new inflation figures and interest rate decisions hitting right now. Step 2, the formulation of the federal budget. Step 3, somehow trying to use that budget to address this highly agitated, deeply frustrated cost of living mood we've been talking about.
And here is the million-dollar, or maybe billion-dollar question. It's the impossible economic tightrope the government has to walk right now. How can they provide meaningful cost of living relief to people who literally can't afford fuel or rent without pumping more money into the economy and driving up inflation even further? Because think about it, if they don't provide relief, voters are absolutely going to turn to populist outsiders out of pure desperation. But if they provide too much relief, inflation stays hot, interest rates stay high, and the pain just continues anyway.
So, let's wrap this up with our key takeaways. We are basically looking at a perfect storm. Disruption is actively brewing in these by-elections in FARA and NPM. Outsider movements aren't just making noise, they are securing massive multi-million-dollar financial backing to organize. This is all fueled by a deep, undeniable disconnect between the political jargon flying around Canberra and the pressing reality of kitchen table bills for the average voter. And the whole thing rests squarely on the shoulders of the upcoming budget, which is facing a severe, almost contradictory balancing act with inflation.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Given the sheer momentum of these outsider movements and the heavy economic realities crushing everyday people, can traditional political parties pivot their messaging and their policies fast enough to address these daily realities? Or is this kind of well-funded, high-flying populist disruption simply the new normal for Australian politics? It's a fascinating question, and the answer is going to reveal itself in the coming days and weeks. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes on those by-elections, and I'll catch you next time.